Good morning, it's Lisa with Lisa Heal Yourself, and today I'm just going to ramble about a higher picture view of the things that I'm worried about going on in the world, and particularly with people's health, with the ability for us to heal moving forward in today's world. So some of the biggest things that I am worried about on a bigger level, and you could call it a political level, but again, I'm not political. I'm worried about this on a world level. Because as you know, when we degrade the world, when the world is sick, we are sick, right? When the world is poisoned or toxic, we are poisoned or toxic. So some of these bigger things, even though it doesn't seem like they're contributing to your health, they're one of the most important things for our long-term health, for our healing, especially if you have chronic illness, but even if you're healthy, to stay healthy, for your children to stay healthy. So, okay, some of the biggest things that I'm worried about and some of the things that I think that we really need to focus on and do our best to counteract, with everything going on in the world is number one, our water. Number two, our soil. Number three, chemicals. Number four, pharmaceuticals. So this isn't in any particular order. I'm worried about them all equally. Okay, so let's talk about our water and our soil for a minute as one, because we can't really separate them, right? What's happening to the land and the soil is happening to the water, and vice versa. So yes, you have more plastic floating in the water, but like it's all one. I want to talk about glyphosate because this is the thing that's really, I think, really worrisome to long-term health. And that is right now we have 4 billion pounds of glyphosate being dumped onto our soils a year. Okay, take that in for a minute. This is destroying our soil. This is destroying our water because all of the runoff from this is going into the water. And this is a water soluble chemical. So it can get into our bloodstream, our system. It's coming in the rainfall, it's coming in the water, it's in the snow, it's everywhere. It's being tested in newborn babies. Okay, this glyphosate is so concerning. Since the dawn of the agricultural revolution, where we decided to start using herbicides and pesticides on crops, we've essentially, about a decade ago, switched over to mass production of glyphosate, spraying glyphosate with everything and engineering seeds, they're called GMO seeds, in order to withstand this toxic chemical and grow in spite of it. But yet it kills everything else around it, all weeds, all pests. So it's killing an ecosystem, right? Because not only is it killing the insects, the pests, any rodents, any animals, anything around it except for this crop, this one crop that is engineered, genetically engineered to withstand the poison of Roundup. Everything else around it is dying. Now, if that wasn't bad enough, a few years ago, some farmer figured out that if they sprayed the crops with glyphosate right before harvest, it would completely dry them out. I'm talking about wheat here. This was the first crop it is used for. So this is going to help the farmer yield a dry wheat crop to send. So what's happening here is now we're dumping glyphosate right before the crops are harvested all over the food that we're eating. This is so disturbing. This revelation is so disturbing that not only are we growing our plants with glyphosate use, but we're spraying them right before they're harvested to yield a better, drier crop, okay? These are the foods that are in our grocery store that we make everything with, that we're giving to our children. So that's why eating organic and looking at organic food is so important, right? Non-GMO engineered food, because these are the crops that are not being sprayed with the glyphosate. Although glyphosate is everywhere, it's running off into all the soils, all the water systems. It's hard to get away from. This is extremely worrisome for all of humanity and all of the future, because do I think that there's a conspiracy out there? Do I think that there's people out there secretly eating their own organic food and spraying the rest so that everyone dies? No, that is not what I'm saying. These are interests of huge, massive corporations looking out for their bottom line. They all have, a great lifestyle, their own homes, their own vacation homes, power. It's just a system, a broken system that's feeding upon itself. It's feeding upon itself, right? In the interests of economics. And the government is allowing this, and it's feeding. It's a whole machine that is feeding each other economically, politically. It's feeding each other. It's feeding into a lifestyle that these people want, that they don't want to lose. It's just no one's doing the inner reflection to say, wait a minute, we're killing planet Earth. Right? These aren't bad people, but this machine, this large global economic machine that's feeding on itself to uphold all the billions and billions of dollars that this is creating, and everything else that comes of that is almost unstoppable at this point, even for good people. And that's what's so scary right now. So as if it wasn't bad enough, we have pharmaceutical companies who now own glyphosate companies. So we see Bayer Monsanto. Monsanto is the company that owns the Roundup, and now they're owned by Bayer. So the merging together of companies that are destroying our soils and our earth and our water so terribly are merging with pharmaceutical companies who are creating, and this machine is even bigger. The pharmaceutical machine is just feeding on itself. It's even bigger. I don't even know the answer to stop this, but chemically derived drugs that are harming the human body are being created by a pharmaceutical company, and now all these diseases that are emerging because of glyphosate. We have all kinds of autoimmune diseases, neurological diseases. People are getting sick, and then we have the very company that is making them sick, the very company that is going to cure them, going to heal them with a pharmaceutical medication. So when we look at, and I'm not going to go, I don't want this to get censored, but just at an overarching view, even before the V's came out, we've had a system in place that was heading towards destruction, was heading towards the downfall of human health, right? Many different drugs, everything from chemotherapy to the V's, to the opioids, to antidepressants, to benzodiazepines. I mean, these are black label drugs that are causing death. I mean, it says it on the label. We can read the side effects. We can read how bad these drugs are and the physical health problems that people who are consuming these and taking these are having. And then the solution is being fed into just handing another prescription, another pharmaceutical. And these companies are making billions, trillions of dollars. And so you can see that it's not in the best interest of health, and yet there's no bad guy, but it's a bad machine. It's a bad business model. It's putting economics before health. And this pharmaceutical industry feeds into the medical industry. It funds the hospitals, it funds the doctors, it funds the universities that teach the doctors. It's an entire model and system that if it were to collapse, the whole economics of society would collapse. So people hold this up because the machine is so powerful. The machine is bringing in so much money. The machine is bringing in a good life for the people who are involved in this, right? They're able to feed their families, take care of them, have wonderful clothes, go on wonderful trips, have vacation homes, right? It's not one sinister person making this decision. This is a decision that's happening by an entire machine, right? Everyone who works in the hospital, everyone who works in the pharmaceutical companies, everybody who works at the government level, everybody who works at the university and college levels. I mean, this is just a machine that's bigger. The problem is it's built on something that is undermining human health, not supporting it. So with the emergence of the V's and now being requested to be mandated and people being pressured, coerced, I would say it's not a stretch to say we're really close to a point of no return with the way that these mandates are going. Because if they are allowed to continue, if the public buys into the fact that this virus that's circulating is so scary that we all need this, and anyone who doesn't get this should be mandated, or severe consequences should be in place for those people, like losing their jobs, losing their livelihoods, the ability to go to college, the ability to go to school, and possibly more coming out as we get further and further deeper into this. If this happens, this will bolster a pharmaceutical industry that is already making billions. It will bolster this industry to making trillions. It will feed the machine in a way that we will be caught in this machine forever. People think it's a few weeks. People think it's a couple of shots. People think it's a couple of things that they put in their body and everything will go back to normal. But what people are missing is that once we feed the machine, once the machine grows, once the economic value of this grows and more people are benefiting economically, politically, socially from something that is harmful and can undermine human health, we're in a real problem, because suddenly we're going to be mandated to take all of it, to take more of it, to take more of it for every virus, for every disease, for every infection. Suddenly these major diseases that we have in the world, I'm just spitting BS here. I don't know this for sure. This is just some of my own random thoughts that I have. But I think in the future, if this is allowed to go in and it's mandated for serious infections, serious viral infections, I think we're going to see a domino effect. And I think we're going to see a lot of researchers and a lot of scientists who are fed by this machine, who are fed by this system, starting to come out with the fact that things like cancer, multiple sclerosis, our heart disease, our biggest, baddest diseases are essentially, it's going to come down to that they're also being caused by viral infections, and therefore we all need to get these for those as well. Now, I don't know that this is going to be the case. This is my fear, because once you feed a machine, as you see, it grows. And once it grows, it gives a positive benefit, a net positive benefit politically and economically and socially to society. It's hard to stop. What's happening though is it's destroying our planet. It's destroying the very planet that we live in, our soil, our water, our human organism, our body. We don't know what's going to happen when we genetically alter our own RNA. What does that do to the human organism long term? How is our health gonna look 10 years down the road, or our children's health, right? Based on the model that we can look back on now in retrospect and see the damage, all the damage that something like glyphosate has done, and genetically engineered and modified seeds, has led to the application of glyphosate, which has led to the destruction of the water and the soil. What is this going to mean for human health, right? Genetically altering our own RNA to make spike proteins. What is this going to look like for our future health? Because I can tell you, when we look back on things like the opioid crisis, when we look back on things like many different pharmaceutical medications that have legitimately been sued, and tons of lawsuits, billion-dollar lawsuits, because we're seeing the evidence come up that these are harming people, these are toxic medications, these are hurting people. What is this going to look like? Not only could have toxic effects, but it has gene altering effects, RNA altering effects. So, humanity as a whole right now, we're sort of at a precipice, and you can feel it in the air. You can feel what's happening. You can feel the tensions in societies around the world, where you have a strong corporate and government directive, directing us what to do, which is holding up economics, which is holding up the framework that society is running off of and built off of, and our relationships with other countries and with China. It's holding these things up so that our economical and political system doesn't fall and crash and burn. But as we're holding that up, we're also destroying health, bodies, the earth. And people are waking up to that fact. Some people are waking up to the fact of what's happening on a bigger picture. And we know that the old model has to crumble and a new model has to emerge, or it won't be long before all of us will suffer because of that, right? Our land, our water, our planet, our soils, we're already on the brink of a major turning point, a major crisis, and something has to shift, right? We're also getting there with the pharmaceutical machine and the brink of these mandates and what they mean, right? We're also having a lot of censorship in the world right now, suppressing, denying, pushing down, labeling things with misinformation, conspiracy theories that just don't feed the current machine, that don't feed the current narrative that is holding all this up. And so you can see different groups of people starting to form, people who are holding up the machine, people who are in support of it, also people who are doing it because, people who are doing that, holding up that machine because they're benefiting personally from it. They maybe work for these companies, they work for these food, they're directly impacted. And then we have a whole group of people who are holding it up because they're being told to, because they're being fed information that makes them fear doing anything else. So this system is feeding people fear. So this machine is feeding on itself, and you can see people starting to say, we got to save the soil, we've got to save the earth, we've got to save our water, we have to save human beings, right? We have to uphold informed consent, we have to uphold choice, we have to uphold freedom. People are starting to see outside the machine, they're seeing what's at stake, right? What could be at stake long-term for human health. And those of us who already have chronic illness, who've already experienced negative side effects, who already have seen some of the truth of the dangers and the risks and how this could potentially impact our long-term health and our children's long-term health and all of humanity's, are standing up against this. So you're getting this tension in society, this divisiveness, this political systems are fighting each other, economical systems are fighting each other, sociological systems are fighting each other. The people are now starting to fight each other. So humanity is starting to feel the effects of a crumbling machine that's holding up and supporting something that won't work long term for society, right? We're holding up things that are literally destroying planet Earth and the human organisms. And we're all one ecosystem, right? We are connected to Earth. We are all in a living ecosystem. We need each other. And right now we're coming at it from all angles. The machine is coming at it from all angles, which isn't a sinister plan, but it's the machine feeding on itself. And at some point, we know from history that all empires fall. And I think this is the beginnings of an empire, of a system, of a machine falling because it cannot sustain, because it cannot work, because going forward, it's not the answer. And if it is, we're all in trouble. So I think that people are starting to see this. But as the old falls away and the new emerges, it's always painful, right? Just with any personal journey, when we allow ourselves to look in the darkness and bring some old trauma to the light, when we bring the darkness to the light, when something falls away and something else emerges, even if it's the right thing, it's painful, it hurts. As everything's coming up, it hurts. And right now we can see a society that's starting to fragment. And so I think what we're seeing across especially on the social media platforms right now, we're seeing so much tension between people arguing like never before. So much is at stake. We have a whole group of people holding on to the old, right? Nobody wants to let go. They're holding on, trying to save and uphold the old. And there's people trying to bring in the new, trying to usher in the new. And we're caught in this tug of war of fear, not wanting to let go of something that's familiar, nobody wants change, right? It's like the fear of change and everybody holding on until we finally, this is everything that's dominant now is going to fall. It has to fall. And as we start to see different areas and different things coming to light, sort of all at once right now, because all of humanity is involved in what's happening right now. So people are waking up and seeing different aspects of things at different times here. It won't be long before the old paradigm, the old institutions, the old machine crumbles and falls, as inevitably anything that can't work and sustain itself long term will do. Who knows what that's going to look like? And it's easier to hold on to a system that has, given us essentially through the 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s an amazing life on the surface. We all have, there's been such a big middle class and so many jobs available and good lives and vacations and fun and all of this. And what's it going to look like if that system crashes and people are afraid? So they hold on and they cling to whatever truths they can find in that old system. They cling to whatever feels safe and right with that old system, because they don't want the good that came out of that system to fall away, but the bad that came out of that system, right? Destroying the planet, destroying the earth, an economic and political system that has grown too big and is putting interests, economic interests ahead of health and ahead of people. Those are the bad stuff, and that cannot long-term sustain itself, because, like I said, if planet Earth goes to pot, so do we. So ultimately we will see this. Ultimately this will have to fall. It's just a matter of how long this is going to go on, how long people are going to cling. We cling as human beings as long as we can to something familiar, with something safe. And it's like that old saying where you're holding onto the edge of a pool, right? You go out halfway, you have to let go of the edge in order to get to the other side. So at some point you have to let go, right? You have to let go and swim across. You can't stay there forever. Similarly, if you're kind of halfway, part way across the pool, you can at any time go back and grab that ledge, or you can decide you're going forward. And this is what's happening slowly, and who knows how long this will take. Will it take a couple years? Will it take 5 years? Will it take 10 years? But ultimately, within the next decade, this model will fall, because planet Earth is screaming, planet Earth is crying, planet Earth is dying. And ultimately, so are we, because we're connected. As a living ecosystem here on planet Earth, we are all one. It is all one, and it cannot sustain itself for much longer. So while I've got no background in political science or even history, really, it's easy for somebody who's already experienced the negative side effects and the damage, and how it's necessary to, clean up the water and our food and our bodies and the toxic chemicals, who's had to go through this at an individual level, that we can almost most certainly say that this is happening at the collective level, that this is happening at a bigger level. And what happens to the micro always happens to the macro. So we can see that what one person needs to heal with chronic illness, right? We need to switch them. We need to filter their water. We need to get them on organic food. We need to detox the chemicals out of their body. We need to connect more with nature. We need to get our sleep cycles right. We need to get our lifestyle on point. Like when you look at the micro, which is happening all over the world with the rise and the uptick of so many diseases, including autoimmune, cancer, when you look at what's happening on the micro level, to each individual, what they need to go through to restore their health, you can apply that to the macro. That's essentially what we need to do on a macro level. And it looks like these industries that are causing the damages are going to need to collapse. So essentially that is what's going to happen. And unfortunately, it will be too late for a vast number of people, which breaks my heart, because a lot of individual people are going to have to get sick for the collective to wake up to see this. The soil and the water is going to have to get even worse than it is, which, breaks my heart. But eventually we cannot sustain Earth this way, and it's going to become obvious. We cannot sustain the models that are in place that are harming human health and harming the ecosystem that we are. Unfortunately, it may have to get worse before it gets better. Humans are like that. We cling as long as we possibly can. And sometimes, when we make the switch, it's already too late for a vast number of people. It's already too late for many parts of the world, and it takes a lot of effort to restore what once was. But this is sort of the way the machine has taken us right now, and this is what we're up against. And just like the canary in the coal mine analogy, where they bring the canary eggs down into the coal mine, and some of them that are sensitive die, and that's what tells the miners to get out of the coal mine, right? They're messengers. These canaries are messengers for the miners to know whether it's toxic down there and they should leave. So there are many messengers right now in society. There's people who are working to clean up our water. There's people and farmers who are working to bring regenerative agriculture to the world. There's people who are working in natural health and trying to show the dangers and expose the dangers. There's victims. There's people who are already affected this, who have already, gotten major diseases, autoimmune diseases, cancers from what's happening in the world. There are already people out there warning about the dangers and risks about what's going on with the V. There's so many messengers out there, but we don't listen often until it's too late. And unfortunately, I feel like we're only going to learn this in retrospect. Unfortunately, a lot of times we learn things in retrospect. We look back, and there's so many messengers now. I wish people would heed the advice of the messengers. And I'm a messenger. I have a message because I've lived through an experience firsthand that gives me a perspective that some won't, that most won't. Thankfully, most won't. But when we ignore all the messengers, then sometimes we have to learn our lessons in retrospect. And I really hope that's not going to be the case, because I really do think that humanity as a whole, planet Earth as a whole, is in sort of at a tipping point right now, and we're in big trouble. Well, I do believe that this machine will not be able to sustain itself, but it's so many people are involved worldwide. It's not just, one empire like the Roman Empire. It is a worldwide machine, and it's going to hurt collapsing, and there's going to be a lot of anger as it comes down, and frustration, and people who aren't wanting to give up the old, and they don't want to hear the information. They want to suppress it. They want to fight it for as long as they can. So there's going to be more censorship, more distension among family, friends, colleagues, the government. It's people. It's a tough journey waking up. It's a tough journey waking up to what is happening worldwide. And I don't have the answers, right? I don't have the answers. I know that we have to keep talking, right? We have to keep talking. We need the messengers. We need these people. We have to keep talking. We have to allow free speech. I know that much. As the world switches over to 5G technology, we're going to be seeing a lot of damaging side effects, a lot of upkick of autoimmune. People don't want to look at this. They don't want to listen to the messengers on this. But you even have certain segments, even airlines are warning against this. So, like I said, this isn't a group of sinister people wanting to ruin the world and take down themselves in the process. This is a machine that is holding up an economic world platform that is sustaining everything and everyone right now. And it's scary to see something collapse, even if it's necessary. So, there's so many problems that we have converging right now with the convergence of the V's and the water and the glyphosate and the 5G. And a lot of people want to wrap this up into a neat bow of misinformation or conspiracy theory, but fear does that, right? We cling to the old. We don't want this to be the case, because what else changes and what else falls if that is the case? What are our cozy comforts that are going to have to change, or we're going to give up? And we don't like to give things up. We don't like to change. Again, I hope that we don't have to learn all these lessons in retrospect. I am afraid of that. That's why I bring these messages forth. I don't make any money off this. I have, very little to lose, but I still don't want to lose this YouTube channel. So it would be easier for me to say, I have a message, I have thoughts about this, I have something that I think needs to get out there in the world, but yet I don't want to lose my YouTube channel, so I'm just not going to bring it. Right? There's a lot of people who make their living from their channels, right? A lot of people who are threatened in bigger ways, and there's so much more to risk. And so they don't talk about this. They don't bring it forth because, even they, if they know it and don't want it, will lose their money, will lose their channels, will lose their following, will lose their homes, will lose their income, will lose all the nice things that they have. And even people, who really have a message to give won't give it right now because there's too much to lose, and none of us want to lose. I'm not telling you what to do. I don't have the answers. But what I would say is if you have a message for the world, if you're a canary, if you have a message, share it. Share it, but don't share it with righteousness. Share it with love. Share all your messages with love, because we are all one. Humanity, humans, the ecosystem, the world, the planets, everything in this universe is one. And we need to deliver our message with love, with kindness, with compassion, that everyone's waking up at their own speed. I'd also urge you that if you don't have a message, but you hear a message, to stop and listen. If you get an inner voice or an intuition or an inkling, to sit in mindfulness, to pay attention, because the world is moving at warp speed right now. Technology is going faster than ever. We're looking into the world of transhumanism, 5G, super speed. Like, we don't know what's going to happen to the human race. The pharmaceutical companies, big agriculture, big tech, all of these big companies are evolving so fast, and what's happening to our bodies and planet as a result could be catastrophic. Some of it could be brilliant, some of it could be amazing, and some of it could be the best amazing inventions or forward movement that we've ever seen. And some, unfortunately, in the direction that we're now headed, putting monetary gain, putting profits ahead of human beings. I think we're heading into a dark age. But I know this is kind of a negative point of view, but we're all just humans. We're all here. I believe we all came here to planet Earth at this exact time in history, at this exact moment on the planet. We came here to be light to this planet. We came here to have an experience. We came here to experience love. And we picked this time for a reason. There's a purpose for us being here. So share your messages. Listen to messages being given to you. And more than anything, look inside. If something doesn't seem right, if something doesn't feel right, take note of that. Your internal voice is the connection to your soul, is the connection to all that is. It's speaking, it's showing, it's guiding. So be aware and treat your fellow human beings with humanity. Instead of looking into your screen, look into someone else's eyes. Look into their eyes, into the window of their soul. Connect. This is about connection. We must find a way to connect, to unify, to come back together as one ecosystem, one world, one planet, one source. We're all connected. And ultimately, we're all here to bring it all back together, to bring everything into the light and the love. Speak your messages. The world needs the messages. Listen carefully. Listen. What do you hear? What messages are coming to you? And look inside. That's where the answers are, right? That's where your internal guidance is. That's where God speaks, where your soul speaks, where the universe, where the wisdom of the generations that came before us. Those little voices, those intuitions, those part of our soul that's already connected to all goodness, to all source, to all of light, to all of love, to all of everything that ever is, never was. Reflect on that. Look inside. So yeah, it's going to be a tumultuous decade, I think, ahead. But I believe in humanity. And I'm a messenger. I came to this world, unfortunately, to go through an experience and to become a messenger. And I hope people heed my message. But there's many of us out there. There's many different ways that people are going to come upon the truth. And the truth is, we have to treat our body like a temple. We have to treat our body like a temple, this suit that we've been given, that our soul's been given to walk through life on planet Earth for 100 years, to treat it like a temple. It matters what we put into it, the water. It matters what soil we grow our food in. All of these things matter. You know, what we choose, what medications or pharmaceuticals we choose or choose not to put in our body. This body is a temple and we must treat it like a temple. And when we do, we're reminded that the micro is the macro. So as you treat your body like a temple, treat planet Earth like a temple. Treat our water, our soil, our land, our air like a temple. Treat every human being on this planet as a connection to source, like a temple. Look into their eyes, connect. And remember, we're here to make a difference. We're here to come through this period. Whenever there's darkness, there's light. Whenever we emerge out of darkness, we emerge into light. So shine your light. Be the light. Share the love and lead the way. Lead the way that humanity has to go for us to survive, for future generations to survive, and, you know, for all of humanity to really sustain itself here on this planet. These are the questions. These are how you must live your life. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you do, give it a like, give it a thumbs up, share it. The world needs these messages, and hopefully they don't get taken down. Hopefully they don't get censored. You know, truth always finds a way to rise. Messages always find a way to come through. And light and love always, you know, are what we strive for as all human beings. So again, subscribe if you haven't, give it a like, and I will see you in the next video.